Stop apologizing. Stop apologizing. It is our time now. What am I talking about? What am I talking about? Let's go back in time a little bit. Let's talk. Let's have a chat. Let's have a fireside chat. Let's chat. Going back to the 1980s, the 1990s, I was born in 1981. So I was a kid during, I would argue, the greatest pop culture phenomenon in terms of IP, whether we're talking about sports cards, non-sports cards, action figures, video games.
This is the coolest thing I have ever seen.
I was very extremely fortunate. My own teenagers say that they wish that they had grown up in the 80s and 90s because of the innocence of it pre-internet, but then also just all the cool stuff that continues to be remade.
One shall stand, one shall fall.
Ghostbusters, Garbage Pail Kids still have cards coming out. I mean, it's insane. The lists are endless. How many remakes can you name from 80s movies? You know, redos, all the stuff that came from the 80s and the 90s, really the pop culture mecca in the US as far as US history, which of course translates globally. Countries all over the world copy and love US pop culture. Not to take away from pop culture from other countries, that's not what I'm saying here, but the United States really drives it with Hollywood movies, sports, music, etc. But sadly, we have seen, especially over the last few years, there has been a lot of posturing. You know, everyone's always posturing for what they really enjoy buying, selling, collecting, and whatever, and there's narratives all over the place for certain things. And we don't need to apologize anymore. This age group that's 35 to 45 and makes up the majority of my YouTube audience, a close second to the 45 to 55-year-old age group. I'll put a little bit of data up on the screen. And then we've got 65 plus, which is really just my parents at 3%, plus all the fake accounts I've asked them to please open and view the content. Kidding, guys, but actually that 3% is probably my mom and my dad. All right, so we have the majority of my viewership are 80s, 90s babies. They grew up in this era. They're like me. They can relate to me. They're about my age. They've got families. They've got wives, girlfriends, whatever. They can relate because they grew up with the same stuff. They grew up with, you know, Mike Tyson, Michael Jordan. They grew up with Beavis and Butthead and the Ninja Turtles. Unfortunately, they also really printed cards like crazy during this era in the 80s and the 90s, but it doesn't make them any less than. I mean, and I'm going to show a set. My favorite set of all time is 89 score football. And nothing compares to this set for me and the memories and the nostalgia that come from this set. Nothing is even in the same world. I can sit here and flip through the 89 score binder and it gives me just as much appreciation, just as much happiness as other individual cards that I've got as well. Another set that's a classic for a lot of people, 1990 MU. 1990 MU. I don't have the holograms in here with this set, but I basically have the base set without the holograms. I do have one of them packed away somewhere. And actually, my dad had told a story, and this is what's great about cards too. My dad did not collect cards. He just supported helping me buy packs, etc. when I was a kid with allowance. And he was like, you know what? I remember when you were a kid and you got a Silver Surfer hologram out of a pack and you were so excited about that. And I had forgotten that memory. I didn't remember it at all. I still have the Silver Surfer card in my box of like childhood cards. But I thought it was really cool hearing it from him because he wasn't a card collector. He wasn't one of those that was doing it and I got into it with him. But when you listen to folks in the hobby today, what do you hear? What do you hear? It's like, you should be collecting a complete set of 1954 Topps baseball. You should have 90s inserts, rare inserts. That's the only thing to collect. Or you should have a Joe Burrow RPA. That was terrible. Anyway, I think you get my point. Everyone is really going to push the stuff that they like. And I think for us, we've gotten to the point of like, oh man, that 80s, 90s stuff, it's just, there's not much to it, you know, unless you're getting Tiffany sets or you're getting PSA 10s or whatever, you know, there's not a lot of value to those. But I think we also need to recognize, and I want to shout out to Junk Wax Hero Mike and then Iowa Dave are two channels. There's many channels, and we will continue to shout out channels, more of them over the next few months especially. is they really focus in, zero in on these types of cards. One of my favorites here is the Greg Maddux 87 Topps. That's a 10-10. But even this card, not autographed, it's still fun for me. When people buy expensive boxes of today's product, I get more enjoyment out of opening an 89 Pro Set football box looking for Troy Aikman and Barry Sanders rookies than I do any sort of new product that's overpriced. I would rather buy a $20, $25 junk wax era box, open that up, flip through, you've got the memories. Now, look, if you're my age, don't apologize for some of our overprinted sets. You don't have to go buy a $500 box to be a part of this hobby. You can buy a $25 box of 89 Pro Set, $20 box of 90 Don Russ or whatever, and look for Diamond Kings. There are no rules to this, and it's your damn money. Let me say that again. It is your wallet. It is your damn money. I get really tired of it's like, this is the one way to collect. This is the one way to buy or sell or whatever. I get so tired of that. It is your money. It is at the end of the day, it's your enjoyment. My office is full of stuff that I want to look at. It's not full of whatever somebody else thinks is cool. It's not. And I've never been that way. Not to say that we don't occasionally FOMO into certain things, but especially for those that are just getting back in, it's not what should you buy? It's more of like, research really what you like, buy some things, and then maybe you'll say like, you know what, I like this better than that. You're not going to know what's even available out there until you spend at least a few years in the hobby to see just how many different sets of cards, different non-sports, sports, all the different things. Look, I've got starting lineups. For me, even certain starting lineups going back to the 80s are fun for me to have. Ninja Turtle packs, Terminator 2, Garbage Pail Kids stuff, Stranger Things cards. I've got a bunch of Tom Brady. I've got a bunch of Drew Brees. For vintage, I've got plenty of vintage as well. I've even got Moss Man, because who the hell can forget Moss Man? And so again, stop apologizing for the stuff that you really enjoy. It's your world, it's your journey, it's your collection. That's it. That's the only thing that really matters. It's fun to watch, YouTube or to watch IG and see what other people are collecting, not necessarily because you need to rush out and buy that thing, but more so just to see like, okay, cool. I didn't know that existed. Why are they collecting it? What's the story behind it? And then you can gain some understanding around it. That's fun to do. But we need less of this is the way, this is kind of the way that you'll end up. Or eventually when you're a mature collector / speculator / investor, you'll move on to these things that I have. Screw off, honestly, like really. It's everyone's own wallet. Let them figure it out for themselves. And for us, hey, don't apologize to the younger crowd, the older crowd. We grew up, if you were in that age bracket, we grew up in the greatest moment in pop culture sports history. Why do people love 50s baseball cards so much? Why is that? Because it's in a great time in America. It was a great time. The 1950s are looked back on fondly. Post-war time, everyone's, starting families. It is viewed, whether everything was perfect in the 50s or not. I know there's plenty of people that say like, the 50s sucked. But the 1950s is looked at as kind of a golden decade where we were coming out of the war, getting our feet, a great family time. Baseball cards from that era represent that part of American history, that part of Americana. And there is a nostalgic effect. There is, a dopamine hit that comes from that. And honestly, it's no different in the 1980s. It's no different. It's just that people actually held on to them. They took a little bit better care of them. So, they didn't dump them in the river, the Hudson River, or whatever the story is with the 52 Topps Mantles. So sure, maybe there's not an 80s card that's ever going to be a 52 Topps Mantle, but there's plenty of great 80s and 90s cards outside of just Tiffany sets or just, 90s inserts numbered to 5 or whatever the hell. You can get a lot of enjoyment out of regular stuff. All right, guys, I will stop rambling. Stay healthy, stay awesome, and I will talk to you again later.